Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So, we've got you guys an update on a massive severe weather outbreak that's currently impacting the United States, and this will continue into tomorrow, where this will become a multi-day severe weather outbreak, bring tornadoes, up to softball-sized hail, and very strong wind gusts. I've got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you all for joining me here. All right, on this Monday afternoon, we've got a lot to talk about in this video. We've got an urgent update because these severe storms are now just beginning to fire across the region. Got major updates and changes to the SPC. The models are going crazy. We've got a ton of information to go through, so let's get right into it. All right, so starting out here with your current radar, you can see that our storm system is pretty good. You've got a huge trough. You actually have a shortwave trough that's moving, that's digging down here across the west southwestern United States, and this is basically what your jet stream looks like right now. You've got cold air coming in on the backside, and then you've got a very, very broad and big warm sector here that's pulling up a huge moisture return. That's the kind of setup that we have now. The warm front actually should be drawn back here. So that's basically what we've got going on, and we do have a lot of changing heights right now, so that's where we're going to get rotation with tornadoes. But it's got a big line of storms that's kind of moving their way across Texas up through the lower Midwest. You can see really all the way up from Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, all the way down through Missouri, Oklahoma, and then into Texas is where we're seeing the most activity right now. I'm telling you guys, this will pick up and continue in just the next few minutes. Maybe not, I wouldn't say maybe not the next few minutes, but definitely the next few hours. We're going to see explosive thunderstorms, big time activity, big time convection. So let's get right to it. All right, so talking about your alerts right now, you can see that we have 4 thunderstorm related alerts. We'll start with the first one. This is the farthest north. This one is including south central Illinois, going down through northern central and southwestern Missouri in that yellow shade. That's where you have a tornado watch. That is including a big chunk of the lower Midwest, so that's going to be a very concerning one that we're going to have to look out for. But there's there's a severe thunderstorm watch going up for southeastern Kansas. You can see we do actually have some severe thunderstorm warnings in the orange shade inside these alerts. And then going out into central and then southern Oklahoma, all the way down into extreme northern Texas, you have another tornado watch highlighted in that yellow shade. And then into north central Texas, we have a severe thunderstorm watch with a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings now that are in effect. So this is as of the filming of this video. So a lot of these warnings will be outdated, but these watches and these watches for these tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches will most likely still be up by the time you watch this video. All right, but in the green shade, this is over towards Ohio into Kentucky, West Virginia, PA, and Indiana. You have in the green shade a flood watch. There is some very heavy rainfall, a lot of excessive rainfall that will be coming down with these thunderstorms and just with this storm system in general. So please be aware that not only is there a big threat for severe weather, but also there is a threat for flash flooding. All right. So let's get rocking and rolling. We're taking a look at the south central United States. This is the NAM 3-kilometer model. You can see that you have your low pressure that's moving across central Texas, and already by 6 p.m., here we go. This was half an hour ago. You start to get these explosive thunderstorms moving across northern Texas, all the way up to like Missouri and into Illinois. But watch as these storms continue to gather in intensification, and they form this little line of storms. But look at this. So you see this pink in here? That's extremely large hail, and that's going to be shaping up for, it looks like, north central Oklahoma. So when you get these pink shades, like also up here into north central Missouri, that you're calling for massive hailstones. Like we're talking about up to softball, maybe even DVD size hail. So huge hail today. We could see record-breaking size hailstones with these storms. I think we already had a hailstone that was over 2 inches in diameter, but big time hailstones, gorilla hail today. And you can see big time hail all the way down from really south central Texas all the way up through Indiana and Illinois. All right, but you can see we have a pretty good line of storms stretching all the way up from north central Missouri down through southeastern Kansas, northern Oklahoma. That's kind of interfering with that area where you have the tornado watch and the severe thunderstorm watch. But these prefrontal warm, thunderstorms, these cells over here, this is where you have that tornado threat. These are the storms that will be rotating, all right? And when you get rotating storms, you get tornadoes. But any one of these supercells has the potential to rotate, and you can see they continue moving along with that line with that low pressure, but it's looking like a very mostly a highlighted damage wind and a large hail threat. But once this line starts to break up and you get these supercells, that's where you're going to get that tornado threat to ramp up. And when you get that tornado threat, it's just such a prime time area that these thunderstorms will just explode, and we're going to get rotation. It's a big day for severe weather. We're going to look at the SPC, but today it's code red. It is not. This is not an April Fool's joke. This is a code red, and the setup for these storms is just incredible and very favorable for severe weather. But these storms just continue into the overnight hours. Look at this. We're already at 2 a.m. Eastern time. I don't think these storms look any different, any weaker than they were just at 8 p.m. showing up on the NAM. And I think in fact they look stronger, and I think they would be dropping larger hailstones. We'd get more rotation, more rotating supercells. Now looking like an extreme northwestern Arkansas through central Missouri, and then all the way into Illinois. That kind of general area at this point would be the highest, would have the highest threat of the day. But it's not like a huge dry line is going to come through, because you still have some action back here into Oklahoma and Texas. But look at this. I mean, look at the cold front. The cold front, really? All right, it's all the way back up into like Nebraska. All right, so you don't have much pressure on these storms with as far as thermodynamics go. All right, you're gonna have the dew points. The dew points are going to be there. In fact, let's look at dew points right now. All right, these are your temperatures. Look, you're in the 60s and 50s. That's perfect for severe weather. I mean, that's pretty much the standard temperature for severe weather. But look at this. These dew points not struggling at all to get into the upper 60s and then into the 70s if you're farther south. So you don't really have that big of a dry line. I mean, you have it there, but it's not really causing any problems with these severe thunderstorms. And you can see that, here it is. I mean, you are going from like 60s to 50s, but you can still have severe thunderstorms, or at least non-severe thunderstorms in the 50s. And this transition is not very sharp, so meaning that the warm sector here is going to be very broad, and the cold front is not going to be pressing up against it too much. But this is where that cold air is going to be coming in from. It's just the moisture return is going to be huge. And I don't think, today's not going to completely rely on thermodynamics and really all the cold air. I think it's going to really rely on the shear and instability. And we're just going to have to look at that in a bit. But these storms continue moving across the region, and then cold air and more stable air will finally begin to pull into the region with high pressure nearby. But for some, it may not clear out until tomorrow morning. It may still be raining out here into Missouri, maybe even up to Illinois. We may have some spotty showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning. So it definitely will take a long time for these storms to move out. All right, but I'm watching for supercells anywhere from Texas all the way up through Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and then all the way up to the lower Midwest. All right, so this is going to be a very broad region that I do think has a very good chance and a very likely chance for seeing severe thunderstorms capable of producing up to softball, maybe even DVD-size hail, up to 5 inches in diameter, which is kind of bizarre. But we've already had severe thunderstorm warnings today that are going for tennis ball-size hail, and right now is not even really the prime time for these storms to explode. It's going to be later in the day. Right now, it's 6:37 Eastern time. It's going to be in the next few hours when these storms get the most intense, and we're already talking about tennis ball-size hail. So that's just something to keep in mind, all right? So, now about CAPE. This is instability, thunderstorm juice, kind of all put together, and this was a 12 NAM 3-kilometer model. You can see the environment that these storms are just, flung into. You can see we're already getting dew points, all the way up into Missouri, into the 3,000. So you're getting close to 3,000 joules per kilograms of CAPE. This is a very, very prime time, very good severe setup here. All right, these photographs, when we look at photographs, they're going to be very, very intense. Okay, but you can see that we have plenty of CAPE to deal with. If you're farther south towards the Gulf of Mexico, you don't really have that much CAPE. It's more farther north. But there is some dry line happening right here. All right, there is a dry line starting to try and form. It's right along here. This kind of the cold air, the boundary of warm air. It's near the boundary of cold air. Cold air is back here. There's still some space in between, so it's not anything too crazy with the cold air pressing up against the warm air, but you do have a dry line, all right, and it's trying to force down these dew points and, also the Cape levels. But you have plenty. I mean, I don't see any problem with Cape levels with this storm. You got Cape levels getting well into the 2,000, maybe even up to 3,000 joules per kilograms, all the way up to Illinois, which is extremely far north. Um, but this dry line does start to kind of push these storms off to the east, and it works well with the overnight hours. So you may get a small break in severe weather if you're, throughout Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. But like I said earlier, when we looked to the NAM with, our precipitation, I mean, you see a completely different story. You do get you see what I mean here, though. You do get a little bit of a break in the severe weather for areas of, uh, like Arkansas, Missouri, and Southern Illinois. But if you're farther north with the Cape level still being there, the Cape level still getting over 2,000 joules per kilograms, I don't see how these storms are going to be any weaker. And once again, I do think this is not only going to focus on the thermodynamics. We're going to be talking about wind shear and instability as well. But these thunderstorms continue to move off to the east. We'll get that rebound of dew points and Cape, which we'll talk about later in the video. All right. So here's one thing to look at. This is your significant tornado parameter. This is based off of the NAM 3-kilometer continental U.S. model here, and you can see that we're already getting very, very high. I mean, some of these totals, or I shouldn't say totals, but some of these numbers that come in are going to be pretty ridiculous. We're getting up to a 7.5 on the tornado parameter. I'll move my screen so you can see. Look at that. When you're getting, I would say when you're getting over 5, you're talking about a very, very real chance of big time long track tornadoes, and this is what you're seeing here throughout central Oklahoma. You're getting well over a 6.2 here. 7.7 is what we saw earlier today on the NAM. You can see we're still getting over like a 3, maybe up to like a 4, just to the west of the St. Louis metro area. But we get pretty intense here for a moment. This is when we get most intense. This is getting into tonight. This is like 1 a.m. tomorrow morning Eastern time. So you guys would be in Central time if you're in Oklahoma or so. But you can see we're getting well above 5, pretty much up to 6, but if you get to a 7, you're talking about a real chance for a tornado outbreak, and this is what we may be dealing with. So, you can see that the NAM does agree on, or it does agree. The Cape on the NAM, it kind of agrees with the significant tornado parameter. But can you get a tornado farther south into Texas? Yeah, it's certainly possible. You're getting up to a 6 here in the Dallas Fort Worth metro area. So, I mean, if you're in the orange shade, especially in the red or maybe even purple shade, that's where you could have the higher chance of a tornado. This map, this model run that we're looking at, just shows us where the best chance for seeing a tornado will be. And so I'm just saying that if you get over a 4, you're probably going to be dealing with at least a significant tornado event. And then these storms will continue to move out. But this is what I would consider a very, very convincing model run. I think this is definitely, the NAM is definitely agreeing on a potential tornado outbreak. All right, and that's the scary thing. So here we go. This is the SPC, and boom, we have a moderate risk for severe weather highlighted in the red shade. This is including eastern Oklahoma down through extreme northern Texas. It kind of relates to the same, pretty much the same area where we saw that line of massive hail, the giant hail of storms forming out into central Oklahoma. Well, here it is. You have the level 4 to 5 moderate risk for severe weather highlighted in the red shade. That's including Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So I believe that's also including Norman, Oklahoma. So some very populated areas in there. So this is a big time just day for severe weather for you guys. Surrounding areas of that, you're in the enhanced level 3 out of 5 risk. That's including much more of a widespread area. This is one reason also why we're calling this an outbreak, because you could have still a very, very small area, but seeing a very high chance for severe weather. You could consider it not an outbreak if it's just a very condensed and small area, but the fact that this is so broad and that the moderate risk isn't too small, it's just the fact that we're going to probably end up with a severe weather outbreak. This will be a severe weather outbreak, by the way. This will definitely perform over what we've been dealing with as far as enhanced risk days go. And this is definitely not an April Fool's joke. This is something that you don't want to mess around with, and if you do, you're gonna get caught off guard, and you just don't want you want to avoid that. All right. This enhanced risk is stretching all the way from northern Texas through Oklahoma into northwestern Arkansas into southern and central Missouri. You've got eastern Kansas included in that. All right, and you can see this also does go through southern Illinois, and you've also got southern Indiana included in that risk. So, I mean, there's a lot of populated areas. You got St. Louis, Springfield, Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Springfield, uh, Little Rock, basically just to the south of where this is, but this is a very, very broad area inside this enhanced risk. Surrounding areas of that, you're in the yellow, slight 2%, 2 out of 5 risk. Surrounding areas of that, in the dark green shade, you have a marginal level 1 out of 5 risk. Here's that tornado threat. You're up to a 10% hatch risk for tornadoes. That's going all the way up from really the St. Louis metro area down through southern and central portions of Missouri. That is including Springfield, down through extreme northwestern Arkansas, southeastern Kansas, and then it ends here into eastern Oklahoma. But look at this hatch risk. It's pretty big. There are some, once again, very populated areas inside of this. That's what makes this very concerning. All right, but surrounding areas of that, you're still in a 5% tornado risk, which is considered elevated. I would consider that. I mean, you're going to get tonight. You are going to get some tornadoes that will strike communities that are outside of this 10% hedge risk. So just because you're not inside of the highest risk area doesn't mean you're not going to see any tornadoes. There's still a very good chance that you will get a tornado somewhere inside of this 2 to 5% risk for tornadoes, and that's in the brown shade. And in the green shade, you have the 2% risk for tornadoes, which you have a chance. It's just not as nearly as high as the 10% hatch risk. All right. Large hail threat. We'll go over here. This is the most concerning thing of the day. Honestly, that's what I would say. This is what's driving this moderate risk. You have a 45% chance of seeing a hailstone, which I believe is 1 inch or 2 inches in diameter or larger, within 25 miles of a given location. So this is in that pink shade. This pink shade where we have the 45% chance of seeing large damaging hail, and that's including really east central Oklahoma down through north central Texas. You've got Oklahoma City and Tulsa, Oklahoma, both inside of this risk area. That's hatched, as well as the entire 15% to 30% large hail threat. That's in that red shade. That's including pretty much the same exact area of that enhanced risk. And then surrounding areas of that, you have the, I believe, the 10 to 15% chance. Hold up, let me check. It is a 15 to 29% chance of seeing large hail. So the red shade is a 30%. This is a 15% in the yellow shade. There's so many populated areas. That's why, once again, it's why we're calling it an outbreak. And then in the brown shade, you have the I believe the 5 to 14% chance of seeing large damaging hail. All right, this is the damaging wind gust outlook. It's still there. You've got a very high chance of damaging wind gusts. You got hatched 30% risk of damaging wind gusts in the red shade. Even if you're not in the dashed line, like the circle, you see this circled area. Even if you're outside of this, but still in the 30% damaging wind threat area, I would still consider it almost an equal chance of seeing damaging wind gusts. It just means that they have not much higher, but they have slightly higher confidence in some of these areas receiving damaging wind gusts that are in excess of 60 or 50 miles per hour. All right, but in the yellow shade, you got a 15% chance. You got a 5% chance in the brown shade. All right, so that was your day 1 outlook, and day 2, I would say day 2 actually looks a little bit more concerning. We'll start out with your SPC. You have another moderate risk for severe weather. This is including portions of Ohio. This is central and southern Ohio. You have a moderate risk including Columbus, Ohio, and Cincinnati, Ohio. This is going to be a very intense period of severe weather, and then surrounding areas of that. In the orange shade, you have a enhanced risk, which basically includes the entire Ohio River Valley. That's in that orange shade, level 3 out of 5. Surrounding areas of that, you're in the slight risk. That's level 2 out of 5 risk in the yellow shade. And in the green shade, the dark green shade, you have a marginal level 1 out of 5 risk for severe weather. That is pretty concerning, but you may be thinking, like, oh my gosh, what is that? Well, that is a 15% hatch tornado threat. Okay, we have not seen something like this in, I would say, over a year. I think the last time we had a 15% hatch tornado threat was the March 31st tornado outbreak. I'm not saying we're going to get something nearly as intense as that, but this is a very concerning and very legit threat for a widespread tornado outbreak, because not only do you have the 15% hatched tornado threat, but this also includes a 10% hatched tornado threat, which includes the entire Ohio Valley. And keep in mind, there are some very populated areas in here. So this is a very, very big area that's seeing an incredibly high threat for tornadoes. So the 15 to 29% hatch risk for tornadoes, you're in the that's in the red shade. In the yellow shade, you're in the 10% hatch tornado threat. That's in the yellow shade. And in the brown shade, you have the 5% tornado threat, 2% tornado threat, and the green shade. All right, but you're not done with that. We go to your hail threat. Hail threat. It's not as intense and significant as what we're dealing with today, but you still have like 30% hatched damaging hail threat for the same area of the moderate risk, and for the non-hatched area in the red shade, you basically have the same areas of the enhanced risk for the entire Ohio Valley. All right, 15% for damaging hail in the yellow shade, and then you have a 5%, I believe, or a 10%, not sure what it is. I think it's 5% in the brown shade. All right. Finally, damaging wind gusts. All right. I think damaging wind gusts may make a rebound here, being just one of the bigger threats for today, for tomorrow. I think that tomorrow it's really going to be all components of severe weather, all threats are going to be on the table tomorrow. Today's more of a tornado and damaging hail kind of focus today, which probably means that you're going to get more supercells rather than quasi-linear convective systems. I think today is going to be definitely more of a supercell focused day. Tomorrow we're just going to have, I think we're going to have all threats on the table. All right, but we have a 30 to 44% chance of damaging wind gusts inside of that red shade. In the hatch shade, you have a significant chance of seeing damaging wind gusts. Yellow shade, you have a 15% chance, and you have a 5% in the brown shade. All right. So that was your SBC for today and tomorrow. Let's move on to tomorrow with just the NAM 3-kilometer model, looking at your outlook for these storms. So we'll get through today. Here they go. And keep in mind that this warm front is so far north that you have the potential for, even today, to have some severe thunderstorms across, let's say, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio. All right, even though that there isn't the highest threat for severe weather out in this region today, it's still possible. But here these storms come. And you see, you don't have any line of storms. You have just a train of supercells that are fast-moving, and they are entering a very unstable and good environment for severe weather. So you start to see some supercells start to tear across Indiana and Ohio, but these will be so discrete, and there's going to be so much shear in this area that the thermodynamics and the dynamics are going to line up pretty much perfectly for tornadoes. All right, and that's not the only round of storms you get. This is your second round. This might bring maybe some more damaging wind gusts, but let's click for a sounding here. All right. And you can see that we'll start with this hodograph. This hodograph, you see some somewhat of elongated hodograph here, some rotation in the lower levels. The slinky looks pretty good. You get some changing heights. You can see that the wind direction changes pretty rapidly, pretty quickly as you just go a little bit higher up in the atmosphere. And then the possible hazard type, tornado here, not a particularly dangerous situation tornado, meaning a PDS tornado, but you definitely still have that there. So this is a pretty good hodograph as far as a tornado would be concerned. But if you look at let's look at the first line of storms. We'll take right here, the cell over here. Okay, you don't have any possible hazard types, so it's looking like the second line of storms. The second line of storms is going to be the big one for Ohio. And now let's look at Southern Ohio, because I think Southern Ohio is going to be one of the big areas that's going to get tornadoes. Here you go. You got the PDS tornado on the photograph. You can see we got rotation lowering pretty close to the ground, so a decent photograph there. The slinky looks very intense. You can see we get, if you get a full circle, that's basically showing you that you're going to get a huge chance for a tornado. But you got a pretty good curved slinky here. You can see this kind of the C shape over there. That means that you're going to get changing heights in the atmosphere. You have a PDS tornado for your possible hazard type, meaning a particularly dangerous situation tornado. So if you don't know, one of the higher tornado levels of tornado warnings are a PDS tornado warning, which means a particularly dangerous situation tornado warning. That's usually for tornadoes that are in excess of EF2 strength or EF2 damage capabilities. So the fact that you're getting soundings that are supporting that out here in Ohio just means that there's a very, very significant threat for getting long track and strong tornadoes. But this line of all supercells producing damage wind gusts, hail, and tornadoes sweep across the eastern United States, Appalachia. I don't know how y'all pronounce that. But that continues to sweep across eastern United States before you get this massive trough, this dip in the jet stream, to kind of dig down here and bring colder and more stable air into this region. But still some spotty showers, some thunderstorms out into Georgia, South Carolina, into Tennessee. Maybe some lightning strikes with that. Maybe some non-severe storms. But still, your enhanced risk includes this general area. So actually, I should say that these storms will most likely be severe for some of you, especially if you're out closer towards that moderate risk. Even if you're in the slight risk, remember, there's still a pretty good chance that you could get a strong severe storm in your neck of the woods. But that finally moves out. And on the backside, you actually do get some showery, rainy weather and some snowfall if you're farther north. But you get a massive dip in the jet stream this is going to be a very active jet stream pattern, but you've got a ton of cold air that's just diving down, dipping down, and filling in these areas. You may actually end up with maybe some frost, maybe some freeze out there. Just some very chilly conditions. All right, so we're looking at your dynamics here. This is your shear. This is your wind shear in the atmosphere. Tornadoes love wind shear, and this is what you need. This is your shortwave trough that's moving across the area, but look how strong this lower level jet is. This lower level jet is absolutely ripping out here. It is absolutely ripping. You're getting jet stream winds from 80 to 90, maybe even up to 100 miles per hour. Knots. Sorry. But you've got very, very intense wind shear out here. The higher the wind shear, all right, the higher the threat is for tornadoes. And you can see every single one of these areas. You can see that is highlighted in this red shade. You're getting wind shear that's equaling 80 to 90, maybe even 100 knots. But look at this down here in the Tennessee Valley. You're getting almost up to 120 knots with this massive trough moving in. But over to Ohio, you can see these little streaks, these little streaks of yellow. That is actually signifying where you could get a tornado. All right. But where you get these small upticks of the wind shear strength, and this, keep in mind, this also includes areas towards West Virginia, Kentucky, maybe even down in Tennessee. That's where you could get a possible tornado. That's where the wind shear is going to quickly intensify enough potentially that you could get a tornado there. But just very, very strong wind shear. I don't see any problem that this storm is going to be dealing with. These storm systems, these severe thunderstorms, these supercells, I don't think they're going to have any problem having to rotate. I think that we're going to get explosive, long track, and maybe even violent tornadoes tomorrow with this upcoming tornado outbreak. All right. So for the last part of the update, we look at your significant tornado parameter. Now looking for the Ohio Valley, and here it is. It gets intense really over Kentucky. This is northern Kentucky, getting up to about a 5. A 5 is very high, is what I would consider you're pretty much more than halfway up the scale, but you can still see you're getting up to a 3, maybe a 4 out in the entire state of Ohio. But the fact also relating to today, the fact that we got to a 7 in Oklahoma just means that we're going to see most likely a very, very active and intense day for tornadoes. But once again, there is that tornado threat into Tennessee, still getting up to about 4 out there. So before that threat dies off, you get a rebound. All right, you can see here's that overnight threat kind of dying down, the severe threat. You're only getting up to about a 2. into southern Illinois, and then getting into the very early morning and then afternoon hours of tomorrow, this tornado threat really ramps up. And boy, oh boys, it's just going to be a very active day. Multi-day severe weather outbreak, multi-day tornado outbreak. It's the real deal. This is no April Fool's Day joke. This is a code red. All right. So that's all I got. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. So don't be scared. Be prepared. Be sure to watch Ryan Holliall for live coverage of the severe weather outbreak, and be sure to have multiple ways to receive warnings on the severe weather. So once again, don't be scared. Be prepared. Stay safe out there. Stay ahead of this weather. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more updates like these. And I'll see you guys in the next video.